Today we're getting into the carbon fiber props for the Mavic Pro and the factory DJI ones. So now one thing that I want to get into that I mentioned before was during this video that I tried re-recording because the first one had so much interference between the microphone and the remote for the Mavic Pro. Most of that audio was unusable. So I was re-recording it, although when I was redoing it, I was recording the B-roll for the carbon props or factory ones, whatever I was doing, and I didn't end up pushing the record button again hard enough. So it continued to record when I had the camera sitting there, and then when I had pulled the camera back up to record again, I pushed record, which was actually stopping the previous recording. So I was not recording, and then I hit the button again to stop recording when I put the camera back down. So I have tons of footage of the camera doing absolutely nothing, just sitting there while I was doing other things, getting everything ready, and very few footage of anything actually working. So I'm gonna try and get back into the first few clips that I had that the audio wasn't very good. Some of it is salvageable, but it was also dark, so it's gonna be kind of grainy, but I'm basically gonna try and do the best that I can with the old footage and the few clips of the new footage that I was able to get. And then from there, we'll kind of pull a conclusion back and forth. I'll do a comparison between the two audio clips of the actual props themselves, because you can hear both of them really well, and you can hear the different pitches between the carbon fiber ones and the factory ones. So that'll definitely be some useful information that we'll get into. But other than that, let's dive into this. Okay, so now we're going to dive into the clips that I had from before. And when we get into those ones, you'll notice that once we step away from the remote itself, the interference is actually gone. So that portion of the clips is actually completely salvageable. It's just a little bit darker than I wanted, but I've tried to fix it as best I could. It's not perfect, but it's what we got to work with. Now, the biggest difference you'll notice, like I've mentioned before, is the pitch, and that's basically the only big difference that I could find between them. The carbon fiber ones are a lower pitch, and the factory ones are a much higher pitch. And because of the difference in pitch, that the altitude actually changes the amount that you can hear, because the lower frequencies take longer to arrive to you and dissipate faster, whereas the high frequency ones can cut through a lot quicker, and you'll hear them at higher altitudes. So it actually makes it sound quieter, but realistically, they both ran around the same decibel. Now you'll notice that I had the decibel meter running on the Windows Phone, and we didn't use that, and we didn't get into any sort of readings because I was getting anywhere between 35 all the way up to 80 where it would peak, and both of those measurements were completely at random depending on whether or not the wind was blowing. So because of the excess of wind that day, it was extremely windy. I only managed to get about 15 to 17 minutes, somewhere in between there, on both batteries that I had, one running the factory props and then one running the carbon fiber ones. So there was no huge increase in battery life here, just off of that first test, even though it was an extremely windy day, so windy in fact that the drone was actually having a hard time remaining stable. So as for very accurate decibel readings on the props, I don't have them. Not that the Windows Phone was going to be very precise anyway, but it would have been better than something, but unfortunately we just didn't get it. So we're purely going to be doing an audio test back and forth of the launch, hover, and landing. I'm going to be playing the original props first, and then the carbon fiber ones, and then we'll do a comparison between the original carbon fiber of takeoff, original carbon fiber hover, and then the same for landing. And we'll do all three of those side by side between them. I'll label them in the corner so that way you can see them. From that point, you'll basically get the kind of reading. I don't really have anything to show the difference in altitude, how it was a lot quieter with the carbon fiber ones, but again, that's probably just the ergonomic shape of them because they replicate the Mavic Pro Platinum, which we already know that the Mavic Pro Platinum is a lot quieter. It's just the shape of the prop itself, not necessarily the fact that they're carbon fiber.
Okay, so now we're going to listen to stock props versus the carbon fiber ones. Let's launch. switch to the carbon ones. Okay, so let's take off again. Oh, good. iPhone life. Doesn't work because it's cold. Perfect. Okay, let's do this quick before the screen freezes again. Take off. Okay, I noticed absolutely no difference in volume there. I'm going to say they just look neat. There's no other difference, they just look neat.
When it really comes down to it, after all of the comparisons back and forth, watching other videos, there's no improvement for this. It does absolutely nothing to help the drone in any way. They just look kind of neat, I like having them, and they were about the same price as a replacement set. With that in hand, I'm not one to crash the drone frequently, and even with the first impact on them, the carbon fiber ones did hold up. I didn't think they would. I figured they were going to explode, as that's kind of a natural reaction for carbon fiber to do when it's impacted or flexed, as it doesn't really like to do that. Whereas the carbon infused, so I've read, factory props have a lot of flex to them. And even though the carbon fiber ones don't have the flex, they definitely have rigidity that holds up. So under my first impressions, I was thinking that they actually might be weaker than the factory ones, but through actual impact testing, they held up. So I'm gonna keep using the carbon ones. I see nothing wrong with it. Battery life is about the same. They look kind of neat. It's a little bit quieter at higher altitudes, and they cost about the same as buying a regular set of factory props. If anything, go for it. If you want the factory ones, then keep the factory ones. There's really no benefit to going with the carbon fiber ones unless you really want to. So that's it for now. I'll see you guys next weekend, and we're gonna be rolling out the schedule the weekend after that for all of the changes that are gonna be happening in April. So until then, I'll see you guys next weekend.